You know, when you're an analyst, you're always looking for signals in the market noise. And right now, let me tell you, the loudest signal isn't coming from Wall Street. It's coming from the world's fertilizer markets. A massive supply shock is happening as we speak, and it's threatening to set off a devastating food crisis across Africa. This goes way beyond farming. We're talking about finance, logistics, and a clock that is ticking down fast. You're seeing this quote everywhere lately, from humanitarian reports all the way to trading desk memos. It just cuts through all the noise, all the complexity, to the raw, urgent truth of what's happening on the ground. Okay, so picture this. Across East Africa, the long-awaited rains are finally here. The fields are prepped. Farmers are ready to go. They've got this tiny window, maybe just a few weeks, to plant the crops that will feed millions of people. But one absolutely essential ingredient is just not there. To really get why that ingredient is missing, we have to pull the camera way back from the farm. This isn't a local problem, like bad weather or poor roads. This is a massive global supply shock that has its roots in conflict and finance thousands of miles away. So the key commodity we're talking about here is urea. It's the world's #1 nitrogen fertilizer. And you can think of nitrogen as the absolute engine for crop growth. Now, unlike other nutrients, you can't just bank it in the soil for a rainy day. Farmers have to apply it fresh every single season. There is no skipping a year. You just can't do it. And the market's reaction? It has been absolutely brutal. The benchmark price for urea has shot up 50% in less than 30 days, jumping from around $450 to nearly $700 a ton. In the world of bulk commodities, a move that fast and that big isn't just a price hike, it's a red alert. It's a shock that can destabilize the entire system. So what's causing this massive shock? Well, it all boils down to a single choke point on the map, the Strait of Hormuz. Get this, a full third of the entire world's traded fertilizer has to pass through that one narrow waterway. And with that route now blocked, a third of the global supply has basically been wiped off the market overnight. A commodities manager named David Hale put it perfectly. He said farmers can often skip a season of other nutrients like potash or phosphates because the soil has reserves. But with nitrogen, there's zero flexibility. It's a biological necessity for the plant right then and there, which makes this specific supply disruption so uniquely dangerous. So this shock in the market is now translating into what the International Fertilizer Development Center is calling a continent-wide Amber Alert. So let's connect these big global numbers to what's really happening on the ground in Africa. Let's start with Ethiopia. To really grasp the human scale of what's at stake, you have to understand the numbers. We're talking about a nation of 120 million people. It's the second largest on the continent, and its entire economy is deeply rooted in agriculture. And here's the critical vulnerability. Over 90% of Ethiopia's nitrogen fertilizer is imported from the Gulf. So with that main supply route now basically cut off, the country's whole food system is just dangerously exposed. And listen, this is not just about one country, not by a long shot. The Eastern African Farmers Federation, they represent 25 million smallholder farmers. Right now, in places like Kenya, millions of them have a closing window of about 1 week to get fertilizer into the ground. 1 week. Now, a 4% drop in maize yield might not sound like a lot, but multiply that across 25 million farms, and it translates into a staggering amount of lost food. This is how a simple logistical delay becomes a national food deficit. And this brings us to the most unsettling part of this crisis, at least from an analyst's perspective, the timing. This is a problem that even a sudden peace deal tomorrow can't fix, because it's now a race against a biological clock. See, agriculture runs on this incredibly strict clock. The nitrogen has to be in the soil when the seeds are planted. The yield potential for the entire year gets set in these first few weeks. If you miss this window, you can't make it up later. The damage for the whole season is locked in. It's done. The logistics of the whole situation make catching up literally impossible. Even if ships were loaded with fertilizer tomorrow, they're now being rerouted all the way around Africa's Cape of Good Hope. That adds at least 15 days and 9,000 kilometers to the trip. The fertilizer physically cannot get there in time. So, when you combine the supply shock, the price spike, and this irreversible timing problem, you get what the Council on Foreign Relations calls a slow-motion famine machine. It's a really powerful term, and frankly, it's chillingly accurate for what we're seeing.
And let's be really clear about what this means. This isn't a single event. It's a machine, a confluence of different pressures all working together. A conflict in one part of the world sets off a chain reaction that systematically dismantles food security thousands of miles away.
And there are four main gears driving this machine. You've got the fertilizer shock we've been talking about. Then you layer that on top of three problems that were already there: climate-stressed growing seasons, historically low grain reserves, and governments that are too deep in debt to help out with the soaring costs. It is quite literally a perfect storm. The World Food Program has laid out the possible outcomes with brutal clarity. The best-case scenario, we're looking at much higher food prices next year. And the worst-case scenario, widespread yield reductions and straight-up crop failures. Neither of those paths leads anywhere good. The terrifying reality is that a famine is being assembled right now, piece by piece. A closed shipping lane here, a missed planting window there. Each part of the machine adds up to a smaller harvest, and that cumulative effect is what becomes a catastrophe. And that leaves us with this one final critical question. The machine is already running. The harvest is going to be smaller. The prices are going to be higher. The only question left is, who ultimately is going to bear that cost?